the main part of any project, it is always the back end part in this case, which plays a very important role when we are creating any web application. So first part is we have done with the controls, all the ASP.NET controls which we have in our ASP.NET, and today's class we will be concentrating on the second part. That is the full week we'll be concentrating on the second part, that is the database management system athwa DBMS. So let us like yavde one process, any web application it is, web applications naga there are some data that has to be stored if you are giving a service. Like ನೀವು ಬರೀ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟಾಟಿಕ್ ವೆಬ್ ಪೇಜ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾವಿಂಗ್ ಅ ವೆರಿ ಲೆಸ್ ಡಿಮಾಂಡ್ ಕಂಪೇರ್ಡ್ ಟು ಅ ಡೈನಮಿಕ್ ವೆಬ್ಸೈಟ್ಸ್. even if you create a website for a school or for a college where 90% it is a static data, in this case at least 10% of data will be dynamic, where ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಟಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ಸ್ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಥವಾ ಫೋಟೋಸ್ಗಳೆಲ್ಲ you have to display them photos, you have to change those photos in this case. So ಇಂಥವು ಇದ್ದಾಗ there need to have some backend for the storage of the data in this case. Without the backend or without the data storage, there is hardly one or two websites available in the internet in this case. Yakandra data capturing plays a very important role for any type of website that we need to have in this. So our data capture madliki, data store madliki, we make use of something called as database management system. So database management system, now what exactly it is, like DBMS concept in short, if you want to say DBMS meaning ಏನು ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ we have to know in this case. Now for each and every word we will have some alternate meaning or alternate words in this case. Like data ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ we can also call it as information. So data, I can say it is nothing but a information. The same way base is nothing but I can call it as a platform. ಈಗ ನೀವು ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಮನಿ ಕಟ್ಟಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ದೇ ವಿಲ್ ಸೇ ಬೇಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಹಾಕಬೇಕು ಅಂತೇಳಿ. ಸೊ ಬೇಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇಸ್ ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಪ್ಲಾಟ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆರ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಏನಂತಾರೆ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಎಸೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಲೇಔಟ್ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ಡೆವಲಪಿಂಗ್ ಎನಿ ಅಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಪ್ಲಾಟ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಇಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸೇ. ಲೈಕ್ ಪಿಜ್ಜಾದ್ ನಾವು ಬೇಸ್ ಅದ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಆ ಬೇಸ್ ಇಸ್ ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ ವೇರ್ ಆಲ್ ದ ಐಟಮ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪುಟ್ ಆನ್. ಈವನ್ ಮೇಕಪ್ನಾಗ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಸಮ್ ಬೇಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕ್ರೀಮ್, ಐ ಡೋಂಟ್ ನೋ, they say, I have heard it from my cousins and all, basement layer hachಬೇಕು ಅಂತೇಳಿ. So that is one example of basement in this case. And as I told, money construction, it needs some basement in this case. So I can say it is a platform. Next, management. Management is something like it is you can say procedure, or say management, you can say ಆಪರೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಲೈಕ್ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಕಾಲೇಜ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅದ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಕಾಲೇಜ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅವ್ರ ಕೆಲಸ ಏನಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು, ಆಪರೇಷನ್ಸ್, ವೆದರ್ ಆಲ್ ದ ಆಪರೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಕಾಲೇಜ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕೇಸ್. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಅ ಆಪರೇಷನ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕೇಸ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಅ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್. ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸೇ ಎ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಈಸ್ ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ procedure, or even you can say a format. ಒಂದು ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್, ಒಂದು ಮೆಥಡ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ, ಆ ಮೆಥಡನ್ನು ಫಾಲೋ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಅ ಪ್ರೊಸೀಜರ್ ಆರ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ಯಾಟ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕೇಸ್. ಸೊ if I arrange all these words and form these 4 words and form one sentence to it, if any one of you can try, you can try that. You 4 words use ಮಾಡಿ in information system platform, information platform, operation and procedure. If you can make any sentence to it, you can give a try. Yes, I want some answers. Ian, you have studied this in your second, third standard, I think. ಎಲ್ಲ ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು. No answers. Okay, let me do it. DBMS is a platform to arrange or to perform operations on the information using a systematic procedure ಅಥವಾ using a procedure. So ಈ database ಅಂತ ಅನ್ನೋದು what we say is where you have some data, ಆ ಡೇಟಾ ಅಥವಾ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಅದ ನಿಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ, ಆ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಮೇಲೆ ನೀವು ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಆಪ್ರೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೋಸ್ ಆಪ್ರೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ಡ್ ಯೂಸಿಂಗ್ ಸಮ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್ ಆರ್ಡರ್. ಒಂದು ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೀಜರ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದು ಏನು ಪ್ರೊಸೀಜರ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕತ್ತೀವಿ, that procedure is performed on a platform in this case. Platform is nothing but one basement, or in other words I can say a platform is a software on which all these operations on the information can be performed in this case. So software and band takshana you may ask me, sir, which software we are using here in this case, athwa what are all the softwares that we have for the database management system for managing the data. Of course, there are many softwares in this case, like everyone has heard about Oracle, they have heard about MS SQL, there is MySQL, there is MongoDB, there is you have database like SQLite and many more. Innu bhalashtu, it's not that only these, we have Postgres. So like this they have many databases that are available in this case. Of course idralage nav use madlikkatadu we are concentrating on the MS SQL server in this case. It's one of the most user friendly database software compared to other databases, and many easy methods are given in MS SQL software in this case. ಈಗ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ನೀವು ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಕೇಳೋದು, ಸರ್ ಆ ಸಾಫ್ಟ್ವೇರ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ? ಆ್ಯಸ್ ಐ ಟೋಲ್ಡ್ ಯು, we perform operations on the data ಅಥವಾ information. Now you may ask me, information about what or about whom? It is simple words naga, we manage the information or we store the information of name, place, animal and things. It covers everything that you see and you can feel in the world. Idi jagattanaga ಏನೇನು ನೀವು ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸಿ ಆರ್ ಯಾರ್ಯಾರ್ದು ಎದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ನ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಆಲ್ ದೇರ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕೇಸ್. Like in front of me I can see a tube light, I can see a watch, I can see a fan, I can see a mobile phone is there, I can see a water bottle, I can see clothes, I can see a charger, I have electric button, I have a electric socket, I can see all these things. These are all things and I can store their information. Animals, any type of animal in the world you can store their information. Any information about a place, ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಊರ ಹೆಸರು ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಹಳ್ಳಿ ಹೆಸರು ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅದ್ರೊಳಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಮೇಲ್ ಎಷ್ಟದ, ಫೀಮೇಲ್ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಎಷ್ಟದ, ಏರಿಯಾ ಆಫ್ ದಟ್ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ city or place, what is the GDP of that particular place, etc. All these information about a place. You can store information about a name or I can say a person. ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಬ್ಬ ಪರ್ಸನ್, ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಹಿಸ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಹಿಸ್ ನೇಮ್, ಇಮೇಲ್ ಐ ಡಿ, ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ನಂಬರ್, ಹಿಸ್ ಏಜ್, ಹಿಸ್ ಡೇಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಬರ್ತ್, ಹಿಸ್ height, weight. You can store any type of information about a name antanokante, it is a person in this case. So like this, all these people's information we can store it in a and we can perform the operations on the database in this case. So in simple words, sir, idu can I have one common word for this, all the four things? Yes, the one single word is entity. We call all these as entity, and entity is nothing but it is simple words naga, it is a real world object. We can call it as a entity is nothing but it is a real world object. Entity antandre eno, entity is name, place, animal, thing. You count anything in this case. Okay, so next, sir, okay sir, we will take one entity as an example. and what information you will store about that. Say one entity, like very simple, I can take a mobile phone. Mobile is the entity in this case. Entity ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಏನು information store ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ? Anything that describes an entity. ಈಗ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಎಲ್ಲರ ಬಲ್ಲೂ ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ಫೋನ್ ಅದ. ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ಫೋನ್ ನೋಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಕಮ್ಸ್ ಟು ಯುವರ್ ಮೈಂಡ್? ಸೇ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಕೋರ್ಸ್ ದ ಕಂಪನಿ. ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಈಸ್ ಅದರೊಳಗೆ ಮಾಡೆಲ್ ಯಾವುದದ ಅಂತೇಳಿ, ಸಾರಿ ಮಾಡೆಲ್. ದೆನ್ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್, ಕ್ಯಾಮ್ರಾ, you will think of the storage, you will think of the screen size, you will think of the sound quality or processor, you will think of the color, etc. There are many more in this case. So what are all these? These are called as, in technical words, attributes. Attributes andre enu? Attributes are nothing but the characteristics that describes an entity. ಒಂದು ಎಂಟಿಟಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಏನು ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ, ಆ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡೋಂಥ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರಿಸ್ಟಿಕ್ಸ್ಗಳಿಗೆ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ದಮ್ ಆಸ್ attributes in this case. So here I have so many attributes which describes the mobile phone. Mobile phone is nothing but it is a entity, and all these characteristics or features we call them as attributes in this case. So second word you have to remember, first is an entity, and now the second word, that is attribute. Entity is a real world object, and attribute means characteristics that describes the entity. ಈಗ ಪ್ರತಿ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಎಂಟಿಟಿ, ಪ್ರತಿ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಆಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಟಿಗೆ ದೇ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಹ್ಯಾವಿಂಗ್ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಪಾಸಿಬಲ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂಸ್. ಲೈಕ್ ವೆನ್ ಇಟ್ ಕಮ್ಸ್ ಟು ಕಂಪನಿ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕೇಸ್, ಲೈಕ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಆ್ಯಪಲ್ ಕಂಪನಿ, ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಸ್ಯಾಮ್ಸಂಗ್, ಆರ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ನೋಕಿಯಾ, etc. in this case. Next, when it comes to model, again in Apple phone, suppose if it is a Apple phone, they have some they started with some S2, S3, S4, S5, S series in this case. So like this they have their different versions in this case. So that comes under the models in this. Coming to the cost, like each mobile will be having different cost in this case. Say some 30k is there, 40k, 50k, it goes on. Next, when it comes to a camera, say probably 2 megapixel camera, it started with, I'll put 2 megapixel, then they increased to 4 megapixel, then they increased to some 16 megapixel, and there is some 48 megapixel camera now in this case, and it's so on. Storage bandaga, it was like 4 GB, then increased to 8 GB, then increased to 16 GB, and so on in this case. Screen size, say probably say 4 inch, it started with 4 inch, then 5 inch, then 6 inch. We currently have some 6 inch screens in this case. Processor, they have different versions in this case. I don't remember the Apple versions, so I'll just put A1, A2, A3, so on. So idella what are the values that I'm putting inside the square bracket is the possible values for those attributes. Like company at bandag yavado one company, mobile model bandaga whichever one of the model in this case, cost bandag one of the cost in this case. So like this there are different possible values for each attribute in this, and these possible values, whatever I have put it inside the square brackets, technically we call them as tuples or tuples, however you can pronounce it in this. So I usually use tuples in this case. So tuples andre enu? Tuples are nothing but they are the possible values that can be assigned to these attributes. So it can be any one among them for one particular attribute in this. ಕೆಲವೊಂದು attributes multiple values ಇರ್ತದೆ. So like take an example of address. I don't have an address here, not related to this particular product, but sometimes address and bandaga, yes, we have multiple values for the address in this case. Yakandre address and bandaga, it can be street name, it can be area name, it can be door number, etc. So here you can see color bandaga, there is only one color possible color in this case. Storage bandaga, you can have only 4 GB or it can be 8 GB or it can be 16 GB. Again, it is one possible value in this case. But when it comes to address, you can have street name, area name, door number, pin code, city name. Now again, these are all the attributes in this case. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗ್ತದ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ attributes ನಾಗ there are two attribute types in this case. One is a simple attributes and second is the complex attributes in this case. Simple attributes ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ it will have one direct name. Like take an example of model. Model is S2. That's it. Either it will be S2 or it will be S3 or it will be S4. But address and bandaga, you have multiple values again. Street number kodbeku, area number kodbeku, area name kodbeku, door number, pin code, city name. So again you have multiple values for that particular attribute. Such attributes we call them as a complex attributes or composite attributes antanu ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. Anyway, we depends on how we store the data. Most of the cases we start with simple data in this case. ಅಲ್ಲಿ address and field ಬಂದಾಗ you have two different ways of taking it. Either split ಮಾಡಿ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದು or it is one collective. Address can also be taken in this case. Anyways, so these are nothing but attributes, and attributes ಗೆ we have possible values, and those possible values we for those possible values we call them as attributes ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಸಾರಿ ಟಪಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಈಗ ಸರ್ ಎಂಟಿಟಿ ಆಯಿತು, attributes ಆಯಿತು, you told me tuples also. Okay, fine. How do you store this data? These data are collectively stored inside something called as tables anta ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. Now what are tables? Tables are nothing but it is a set of rows and columns. ಅಷ್ಟೇ. Set of rows and columns where each column represents the attributes and each row will be having the possible values for those attributes in this. Like simple example I will give you. If you have used Excel sheet in this case, I am opening an Excel sheet here. So this is one simple Excel sheet in this case. ಈಗ ನನಗೆ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಇದ್ರಾಗ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಹೌ ಡು ಐ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಇಟ್? Very simple method is I will store the name of the student, mobile number, email ID, their college, and probably course joined, and if I want how much fees they have paid. Okay, so ee ರೀತಿಯೊಳಗ ಒಂದು Excel sheet ನಾಗ I will store the data, and this will be the, I'll put it in the next line. And I'll give one ID. So I have ID 1, 2, 3, 4 students. Name of those students. Say A, B, C, D. And their mobile numbers and so on in this. Illi, as you can see, each row, each column here is representing one attribute in this case. Fees paid is one attribute, college joined is one attribute, course joined is one attribute, college name is one attribute, email ID is one attribute, mobile number is one attribute, name is one attribute, ID is one other attribute in this. And each row, when I say row number 2, it is giving me complete information. They are tuples. Okay, so they are the tuples of that particular entity. One entity, the one student in the, it is the tuples in this case. So as I told you, a table is nothing but just like this. It is a set of rows and columns, where each column represents the attributes and each row represents the tuples in this. ಸೊ ಈ ಟೇಬಲ್ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಟೇಬಲ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದನ್ನ. ಈಗ ಇದು ಟೇಬಲ್ ಅದಂದ್ರೆ ಇದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಹೆಸರು ಇರಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಗಿವ್ ದಟ್ ನೇಮ್ ಆಫ್ ದಟ್ ಟೇಬಲ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕೇಸ್. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಟೇಬಲ್ ನೇಮ್. ಸೊ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಕೀಪ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ನನ್ನ ಬಳಿ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಟೇಬಲ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು ವೇರ್ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಸ್ಟೋರಿಂಗ್ ದ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಆಲ್ ದ ಸ್ಟಾಫ್. I am having one more table where I am storing all the information about the books that are available in the library. I am storing one more table in this case, and this table is having the information of all the student attendance. I have one more table inside this, and this table is having the information of all the students' marks. So ಹಿಂಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಬೇಕಷ್ಟು ಟೇಬಲ್ಸ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು with different attributes and different values in this case. And all these tables are not independent. All these tables are put inside one main header, which we call it as database. So the name database management system, 50% of the words are used for this particular word, database. So database is nothing but it is a platform. Base ಅಂತ ತಕ್ಷಣ I told you it is a platform in this. A platform for the information. But ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಏನಂತಂದ್ರೆ these informations are not put inside a box. ಈ ಒಂದು ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ತಿಳ್ಕೊರಿ. ಆ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ನಾಗ ಎಲ್ಲ ಡೇಟಾ ಹಾಕಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಆ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ನಾಗ we make small partitions, and in each partition we systematically keep those data. And these partitions are nothing but we call them as tables. Okay, so now you can imagine tables is nothing but like this sheet. ಹಿಂಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟೋ ಶೀಟ್ಸ್ಗಳವ, ಆಲ್ ದೀಸ್ ಶೀಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪುಟ್ ಇನ್ ಒನ್ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್, ಬುಕ್ ಒನ್ ಅಂತೇಳಿ. ದಿಸ್ ಬುಕ್ ಒನ್ ಈಸ್ ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಮೈ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್. ಸೊ ಆ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ನಾಗ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಸೋ ಮೆನಿ tables in this case. And how do I imagine a table? A table is nothing but it is a set of rows and columns where each column represents the attributes and each row represents the possible value for a particular entity in this case. And ಇದ್ರೊಳಗ whatever the data you have stored, ಇಲ್ಲಿನ ಕಾಲಮ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಆ್ಯಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಕಾಲಮ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಡಿಲೀಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಮಾಡಿಫೈ ದ ಕಾಲಮ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕೇಸ್. ಲೈಕ್ ಕಾಲೇಜ್ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ನೋ ಬದಲು ಪುಟ್ ಕಾಲೇಜ್ ನೇಮ್. I want some more extra information to be stored. Our table now I can add some extra columns in this case, extra attributes in this, like address. Then I'll keep father name. I have added some column inside this. I can modify, I can delete a column, I can add a column. All these operations can be performed inside the tables. So our table naga you can make some modifications also. ಅದು ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ದ ಡೇಟಾ ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ದಿಸ್. ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಡಿಲೀಟ್ ಅ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ರೋ. ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ modify some of the data inside the cells. Like example, I had given a name. I'll could given a name as A. I'll keep a good name like Anil. So I modified their data in this case. Then probably I will have their mobile names. I want to add their mobile names. I can add the mobile numbers inside this, mobile numbers inside this. So ಈ ರೀತಿಯೊಳಗ you can perform various operations on these data. ಈಗ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಸರ್? ಓಕೆ ಫೈನ್, you told that database is nothing but it is a big platform for data. Then you told inside this database you have tables. Our tables you told you have something called as entity ಒಳಗೆ attributes ಎಲ್ಲ ಅದ. ಓಕೆ ಫೈನ್. How do you create all these things? How do you make these happen in the computer device or a system in this case? For that, very simply, ಇಷ್ಟೊತ್ತನ ನಾನು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಏನು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ, all these are theoretical. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಆಲ್ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಥೆರಾಟಿಕಲ್. ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟಿಕಲಿ ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಅ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ವಿಚ್ ವಿಲ್ ಸಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಆಲ್ ದೀಸ್ ಕೈಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಫೀಚರ್ಸ್. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ವಿ ಶುಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಅ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ which helps us to create a database. It helps us to create table, it should help us to create columns inside that, all these things physically, okay, that should happen in our system. Hang ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ? Very simple. For that we make use of one programming language or one query language, we can say, that is called as structured query language, or in short it is SQL. ಈ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ವೆರಿ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ನೋದು, ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ವಿಚ್ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ಸ್ ಅಸ್ ಟು ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಲ್ ದ ಥೆರಾಟಿಕಲ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ದ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್. ಹೆಂಗೆ ಅದ್ರದ್ದು ಒಂದು ಕ್ವೆರೀಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಇರ್ತಾವೆ. ಈಗ ಹೆಂಗೆ ನೀವು HTML ASP.NET you have written the tags, the same way here we have some commands. Using those commands we can create all those things what is explained by the database management system. ಇದು ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದಾಗ the structured query language was classified into two categories in this case. Two types na classification ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. The first classification is called as data definition language, or in short it is DDL, and second is data manipulation language, or DML, and these two are part of the database in this case. Our database structured query language in the, these are the two different categories in this case. So ಈಗ how this data definition language and data manipulation language will work is what we have to know in this case. ಈಗ first question, sir, data definition language ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, and what do you mean by data manipulation language? Very simple. Data definition language means it defines the structure of database and its elements. So database in the yes, so it defines the structure and of the database and its elements. ಈಗ ನಿಮ್ಮ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಬರ್ತದೆ, ಸರ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಎಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಯಾವ ಎಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್. ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಆಫ್ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಸೆನ್ಸ್ ದ ನೇಮ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್, ಅದ್ರ ನೇಮ್, ಆ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ನಾಗ ಎಷ್ಟು ಟೇಬಲ್ಸ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಇರ್ತಾವ, ಆ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಟೇಬಲ್ಸ್ ಅವ, ಟೇಬಲ್ಸಿನ ಹೆಸರೇನು, ಆಲ್ ದೀಸ್ ಕಮ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ದ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಕಮ್ಸ್ ವಿತ್ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ ನೇಮ್, ಅದರದ್ದು ಸ್ಟೋರೇಜ್ ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಡೇಟಾ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಅದ್ರೊಳಗೆ ಏನೇನು ಟೇಬಲ್ಸ್ ಅವ, ಆ ಟೇಬಲ್ಸ್ ಹೆಸರು ಏನವ, ಅದು ಟೇಬಲ್ಸ್ನಾಗ ಎಷ್ಟು ಕಾಲಮ್ಸ್ ಅವ, ವಾಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ದ ನೇಮ್ ಆಫ್ ದೋಸ್ ಕಾಲಮ್ಸ್, ಆಲ್ ದೀಸ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಕಮ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ದ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್. ಈಗ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್, ಸರ್ ಎಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನೇನವ. ಎಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ದ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್, ಅಂದರೆ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ನಾಗ ಏನೇನು ಇರಬಹುದು. ಒನ್ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಈಸ್ ಯರ್ tables. So tables are the one which will be actually holding the data in the rows and columns format. Or there is a one more something called as stored procedures. Stored procedures is a set of queries which are used to perform operations on the data in this case. We have something called as triggers, something called as events, we have something called as views, we have something called as procedures, and so on. ಇನ್ನು ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ನೀವು ಏನಾದರೂ ಕಲೀಲಿಕತ್ರಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ 6 months course where you will complete have a structure of whole database structure in this case. Everything, all these stored procedures, triggers, events, views, procedures, we have events agada. Okay, events is added. Yes, ಇಂಥವೆಲ್ಲ ಕಾಂಪೊನೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಸೇರಿಸಿ we create something called as database in this case. ಅದ್ರೊಳಗೆ we are here concentrating on two main aspects, that is tables and procedures in this case. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಇದು ದ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಇಸ್ ಲೈಕ್, ಈಗ ನೀವು ಒರಾಕಲ್ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಕಲೀಲಿಗತ್ರಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ದ ಒರಾಕಲ್ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ is having a 1 year course in this case where you study everything about the database in this. ಬಟ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ಅಷ್ಟು ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ ಟೈಮ್ ವಿ ಕಾಂಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್. ಬಟ್ ಎಸ್, ಒಂದು ಕಂಪನಿ ಒಳಗೆ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ಡ್, ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಫ್ರೀಕ್ವೆಂಟ್ಲಿ ಯೂಸ್ಡ್ is the tables concept and the stored procedures and all the different operations that can be performed on the database in this case. So we need to know those two concepts, very important in our application. Next, idanna heng create ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, that is what we have to concentrate here. Like how do we create all these tables, how do we create a stored procedure, how do we create a database, then alter, how to modify these. Like I have created one table, ಅದರೊಳಗೆ ಒಂದು 5 ಕಾಲಮ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೀನಿ. I want to modify one of the column in that particular table. How do I modify that? For that we have something called as alter command. Using alter command we can modify the structure of that particular database or its elements in this case. Last one, we have something called as drop. Drop is to delete something from the structure of the database in this. So on database create madiri, adrolaga tables create madiri. Tables ಒಳಗೆ there are some 5 to 6 columns. ಒಂದು ಕಾಲಮ್ ಯಾವುದೋ unnecessary ಅಂತ ಅನಿಸ್ತು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ, you can delete that particular column in this case. ಕಾಲಮ್ ಡಿಲೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ it is using the drop command. We drop that particular column or table or even database in this. So all these 3 commands which I have written here, they come under the data definition language, and they are used to perform operations on all the elements of the database. All the elements under table, stored procedure, triggers, events, views, procedures, indexes and barthada. All these things you can perform operations using only 3 important commands in this case. So either data definition language ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಂದ್ರೆ it will just create the structure ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, say simple example I will tell you. You have decided that ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮನೆಯೊಳಗೆ you want to bring one say TV stand in this case. So TV stand ತರಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, just one second, TV stand ತರಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ we will be focusing on what are the things that are like ಎಷ್ಟು ಕಾಲಮ್ಸ್ ಇರಬೇಕು, ಎಷ್ಟು ರೋಸ್ ಇರಬೇಕು ಅಂತೇಳಿ we will decide in that particular column in this case, in that particular table in this case. So TV stand naga. Next we just one second. Okay, so ಈ ಟಿ ವಿ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ನಾವೇನು ತರ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಡಿಸೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇನು ಪಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಬೇಕಾಗ್ತವೆ ಅದರೊಳಗೆ ಈಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ವಿ ವಿಲ್ ಡಿಸೈಡ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕೇಸ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಡಿಸೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ವಿಲ್ ಗೋ ಟು ಒನ್ ಕಾರ್ಪೆಂಟ್ರ್, ವಿಲ್ ಟೆಲ್ ಹಿಮ್ ಲೈಕ್ ನನಗೆ ಏನೇನು ಬೇಕು ಅಂಥೇಳಿ, ಅದ್ರಾಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಕಾಲಮ್ಸ್ ಇರಬೇಕು, ಎಷ್ಟು ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಇರಬೇಕು, ಗ್ಲಾಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾ ಅಥವಾ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಯೂಸ್ ಸಮ್ ಅದರ್ material for that. We tell all these things to the carpenter in this case. The carpenter is the one who will decide all the things for the customer, and ಅದರ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಅವ ರೆಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಈಗ ನಾಳೆ ಸಪೋಸ್ ಇಫ್ ಐ ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಮೇಕ್ ಎನಿ ಮಾಡಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ ಟು ಇಟ್, ಲೈಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾರ್ಪೆಂಟರ್ ಏನು ಮಾಡಿದೆ, ಹಿ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ಡ್ 3 ಸೆಲ್ಫ್. ನನಗೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಅದ್ರ ಬದಲು ಐ ನೀಡ್ 4 ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕೇಸ್. So will you do it by yourself or you will go to a carpenter again? Yes, we will go to the carpenter again. He is the one who will make this modification. So ಅವ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ 3 ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಇದ್ದದ್ದು he will make some arrangement, he will make it a 4 columns, 4 columns in this case. So ಈ ಟೈಪ್ ಮಾಡಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ we go to this data definition language tools in this case. Even use ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು we will be making any changes or alterations to that particular structure. Now coming to the second one, that is the data manipulation language deals with the operations to be performed on the data which are there inside the table. Like example, ನೀವು ಎಲ್ಲ ಟೇಬಲ್ ಟಿ ವಿ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ತೊಗೊಂಬರ್ತೀರಿ, ತನ್ನ ಮನೆಗೆ ಇಟ್ಟ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಆ ಟಿ ವಿ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಏನು ಇಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತನೋ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಡಿಸೈಡೆಡ್ ಬೈ ಯು. That is nothing but data manipulation language. So once the table is created, once the stored procedure is created, ಅದು ಟೇಬಲ್ನಾಗ ಯಾವ ಡೇಟಾ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಥವಾ ಅದ್ರಾಗ ಏನು ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಡಿಸೈಡೆಡ್ ಬೈ ದ ಡೇಟಾ ಮ್ಯಾನಿಪುಲೇಷನ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್. ಅಥವಾ ಅದನ್ನು ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ವಿ ಮೇಕ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಡೇಟಾ ಮ್ಯಾನಿಪುಲೇಷನ್ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕೇಸ್. ಸೊ ಡೇಟಾ ಮ್ಯಾನಿಪುಲೇಷನ್ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಬಂದಾಗ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ 4 ಕಮಾಂಡ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕೇಸ್: insert, delete, update and select. ಸೊ ನಿಮಗೆ ಡೇಟಾ ಒಂದು ಟೇಬಲ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗ್ಯದ, ಐ ಮೇಕ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಇನ್ಸರ್ಟ್ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕೇಸ್. ನಂಗೆ ಡೇಟಾ ಡಿಲೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ, ಐ ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಡಿಲೀಟ್ ಎ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ರೋ, ಇನ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಐ ಮೇಕ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಡಿಲೀಟ್ ಆಪರೇಷನ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕೇಸ್. ಸಪೋಸ್ ನನಗೆ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಇರುವಂಥ ಡೇಟಾ ಒಳಗೆ ಏನೋ ಮಾಡಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ, ದೆನ್ ಐ ಗೋ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಅಪ್ಡೇಟ್ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕೇಸ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಗೆ ಸರ್ ನಂಗೆ ಡೇಟಾಬೇಸ್ನಾಗ ಇರುವಂಥ ಎಲ್ಲ ಡೇಟಾ ರಿಟ್ರೀವ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ, ಐ ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಸಿ ಆಲ್ ದಟ್ ಡೇಟಾ, ದೆನ್ ವಿ ಗೋ ಫಾರ್ ದ select command in this case. So ಈ ರೀತಿಯೊಳಗೆ there are different operations that we can use to perform operations on the data. ಅಂದರೆ ಡೇಟಾ ಮೇಲೆ ಅದು ಆಪರೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ we make use of data manipulation commands in this case. So ಈ ರೀತಿಯೊಳಗೆ the database management system has been classified into ಅಥವಾ the structured query language has been classified into 2 types in this. ಒಂದು using the data definition language tools commands, and second is the data manipulation language in this. Data definition language bandu, it mainly deals with the structure of the database and its components ಅಥವಾ elements ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಬೋದು. Data manipulation language ಬಂದಾಗ ಆ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ನಾಗ ಇರುವಂತ ಡೇಟಾ, ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ದ ಡೇಟಾ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್, ಆ ಡೇಟಾ ಮೇಲೆ ಏನಾದರೂ ಆಪರೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ದೆನ್ ವಿ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ದ operations using these 4 commands: insert, delete, update and select in this. Remember, the whole Gmail or whole Facebook websites all are built using these 7 commands. If you know these 7 commands, you can create any type of application and you can perform any operations on the database in this case. Okay, so these 7 commands, 4 plus 3, even the first 3, create, alter, drop, is not that important, but insert, delete, update and select are the most important commands which you should remember the syntax very thoroughly in this case. Yakandra purti database concept is meant on these 4 queries in this case. If you get a very good perfection, then writing a database management software is not at all a big issue in this case. So the heng work ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, like in the next class, not today, because we will finish all the 7 commands, we will practically see those commands in the tomorrow's class. So ನಾಳೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ನಾಗ we will be concentrating on the data definition language, other the syntax. I told you, like create, alter, drop in the syntax hengada. We will see that syntax of those 3 commands in this case, and then we will be concentrating on data manipulation language in this case, like how we perform the storage and retrieval of the data. So I mean all the 4 different operations on the database management system in this case. And as I told you, we are using a structure MS SQL software in this case, so I'll be introducing you to one more database management software in the tomorrow's class. And once you install it, you can start practicing those queries in this case. Okay, so that's it. It is just an introduction about the database management system